Are you infuriated watching your friends improve faster than you, even though you both play the exact same amount? Does this sound familiar to you? You and your duo were low-ranked players, but both equal in skill. After a week, your duo stops messaging you to play. You assume he's just taking a break. 2 months pass and he's Diamond 3. You check their career and you realize your duo's replaced you. They've left you for dead in this lawless, unrelenting jungle of solo queue. You begin to wonder, what am I doing wrong? I watched every guide on YouTube. I aim train on a daily basis. Why can't I get better? Truth is, it could be many things, but I'm pretty sure you know that. It's also true some people just improve faster than others. You may be quick to label yourself a slow learner, but what if I told you that your approach to learning might be wrong? You learn by just simply playing the game. Yeah, that's true, but there is a way to potentially increase the rate at which you improve. All you have to do is stare into the center of this spiral and repeat after me. I will be radiant tomorrow. I will be radiant. No, seriously, this is not a gimmick, I promise. Today, we'll be discussing the process that Radiant players use to improve. You'll learn to explore weaknesses in your gameplay while finding solutions to them in real time. That's right, no VOD review needed. Leave that stuff to us over at SkillCapped.com. With the largest catalog of Valorant guides on the internet, we're sure to help you guys improve. More on that at the end of the video. Now, before you start your gaming session, it's good to remind yourself that you're trying to learn rather than just play the game. If you find yourself forgetting the tips you've learned while in a match, it may be due to hyper-focusing on the game while playing. Reminding yourself to stay in a learning mindset is a good habit that will distract you from tilt and open you to new possibilities. No matter what anyone says, Valorant, just like many other sports and games, is a mental game. Here are some words of wisdom that Mike Tyson's boxing coach told him.
Cus was an interesting guy. He had the concept of fear down to a science. And most of his fighting was mostly psychologically. He believed the physical actuality of boxing was only 10% when the mind was 90%. He always believed in improving yourself and strengthening your mind.
A correct learning mindset begins with the inner voice within you that asks you questions. You asking yourself, how did I just die? Is the simplest and broadest question asked in a learning mindset. The thought process behind trying to learn from mistakes usually follows this line of questioning. Firstly, what happened prior to my gunfight that made me lose? Did I lose the gunfight before it even started due to poor positioning? Or did I make a mistake during the duel? That is a pretty obvious first step, which may come to you naturally. So let's continue. In this next step, you'll be asking questions trying to narrow down what was most likely the issue during your duel. Think of Valorant as a square, divided into 4 quadrants. Now imagine each quadrant being different skill groups. Let's say the top left is aim, top right is game sense, bottom left is movement, and bottom right is decision making. Now imagine that each quadrant is its own puzzle, comprised of differing amounts of pieces. It's unclear how many pieces belong to each quadrant and each puzzle. To solve the top left aim quadrant, you need the smaller pieces such as crosshair placement, flicking, tracking, micro adjustments, etc. Decision-making would be made up of skills such as natural game sense, using prior experiences of gunfights to help discover possibilities, as well as being able to remember how opponents play and where they were earlier in the round. Decision-making is comprised of all these skills, and even more. You may be asking, how does this correlate to improving in Valorant? In short, you're mentally separating each area of your game and keeping organized what needs to be worked on. You can now study your issues one at a time. Let's say you're on Ascent, slowly clearing through B main at the start of a round, and die. What would be my thought process? First of all, I knew it was possible for my opponent to fight me from this angle, so it wasn't poor game sense. The problem, or even problems, may lie in movement, aim, or decision making, or even many problems in all categories. It could also just be an unlucky death. It's your job now, if possible, to pick what skills out of the 4 categories would most help you win that fight. If the angle you fought was bad to begin with, it was probably poor decision making, or positioning, maybe even both. If you missed some bullets, would better tracking, flicking, or crosshair placement potentially help you more than anything else? Maybe it was the way you peeked, and you should be focusing on how you move in-game and how you clear angles. If you're feeling flustered or simply don't know what to do after learning your mistakes, don't worry. I'll be recapping this process in a simplified way that you can remember when heading out into your games. I'll also teach you how to refine these skills. Try to follow along until then. Now that you have the ability to spot and isolate weak skills in your game, it's your job to practice and refine those skills. Applying knowledge is not done instantly, it's done through exploration. In Valorant, it's done through your training. If you've ever watched Optic Ye's stream, almost every time he dies, Ye tries to figure out what he could have done better. This is the mindset we should all try to have. The final step to improving would be refining your gameplay by training weak areas you've discovered while playing. It's important to put your practice in. I promise, 1 hour of efficient training a day can dramatically improve your performance. Many of you viewers can probably identify areas of issues with your game, as well as maintain a consistent training regimen. The only problem is you don't seem to be improving no matter how intensely you might train. I can almost guarantee players with this issue are not training correctly. Either the player's not identifying their issues correctly, or the player's not refining that issue properly. This is why you need your own personalized training routine.
But the one thing I always people always ask, how do you get better? If I was to say, how are you gonna get better at anything you do in your life? What are you gonna say to me? What does every single successful person always fucking say? Work hard, right? There's really no tricks to it. You just have to grind, man. That's all it is. Figure out your recipe for success, your own routine. You could learn from other pros that have done it. Don't just try and learn from your favorite one because you're limiting yourself to that person. Learn from other pros that are in the scene, right? So if you like certain players, but don't limit yourself to just one. Look at everybody, see what they do, figure out how their recipe worked, and take bits and pieces of everybody else's. I do that to this day in this game. I look at other pros in this game. I figure out how they do shit. I take bits and pieces that I enjoy and don't enjoy to see how it is and works for myself. So, I don't know if that made any sense.
Retired CSGO pro Freakazoid puts it best. Don't try to copy exact routines you see on YouTube. Learn how you play. Create your own bag of tricks. Yeah, I know your lobbies might look different than the high elo lobbies, but the thought process of trying to fix mistakes is the same. Even if you die to an enemy, try to learn what worked for them and why it worked for them.
Don't limit yourself to just one. Look at everybody, see what they do, figure out how their recipe worked, and take bits and pieces of everybody else's. I do that to this day.
Now, let's take a look at your training routine, if you have one. It's okay if you don't have a routine, you'll be able to make your own by the end of this video. Let's say you've been doing the same routine for over a week. You're training wrong. A routine should never be the same. As you keep developing as a player, your training will change too. A UFC fighter doesn't always maintain the same training regimen between fights. A UFC fighter adapts to their opponent, and your training routine should adapt depending on how you've improved. So, what does a correct and efficient training routine look like? Let's continue with our Ascent example. You've determined that the B main push failed due to poor crosshair placement and positioning. Now knowing this, I would then practice peeking around walls in the shooting range using sage walls on the practice bots. Remember, use the slice the pie method. It's the key to try to recreate scenarios in training. Mindlessly killing bots does improve aim, but does it really make you comfortable in game? Back to the Ascent example. Let's say you had the superior angle in B main, but you still lost. You've determined it was due to poor movement in the fight. Maybe you're just not comfortable on how to hold an angle. Movement can be trained multiple ways. Strafing with strafe bots turned on will allow you to train your tracking and movement, as both skills go hand in hand. A moving target is always harder to hit than a target standing still. Now let's say you've learned how to strafe, but still die in a similar fight. You may have solved an issue with your game, but more needs to be worked on. Skills that aren't mechanical, such as game sense, are learned through experience. So keep trying new things to discover what works, and try to find out why. In this example, I've learned that this off angle gives me the best chances at killing the opponent in a 1v1. You must remember that even if you improve a skill, more may need to be developed to grow as a player. Learn to identify what skills need to be worked on, recreate them in training, and improvements will come. That is all that's needed to refine your gameplay efficiently. To make a routine, pick 3 mechanical skills you believe need to be worked on the most. Then, for 1 hour, make your own drills in the shooting range or in a custom game. Then practice solely those skills.
Like I said, I'm doing this fairly quickly, so it's gonna be a little sloppy. I'm trying to methodically take this. Okay, there's no one peeking mid. Okay, nothing here. Okay, it's not at the box. That's cool. Anybody in this cubby before I peek this? Doesn't look like it. but I can't clear it completely, which kind of sucks. So the best I can do is like, okay, there's nothing there. I'm gonna take this angle. By the way, that might be a pro tip, is you want to change like the elevation, so his crosshair placement's gonna be a little off. You could use this ledge. So, anyways, I'm gonna clear this. Okay, there's nothing really peeking. You know, okay, I don't really see anybody in that cubby. So I'm gonna get behind this box quickly, and then I'm gonna clear this close corner right here, where it could be, and then that's how I cleared that angle, you know?
Make sure to keep up with your training and be honest with yourself on how you're improving. Here's a little recap of what to think while in game, as well as how to refine those issues. First, you are here to learn, so don't get tilted when you die. Instead, try to find out what happened. Ask broad questions about how you died. Then, narrow it down until you think you know the reason why you died. Your reason for dying most likely could be improved on. Figure out what skills could have won you that duel, and recreate it in training. Make a routine of skills you need to work on the most, and keep up with it. Change your routines once you feel more confident in the skills you've been refining. If you've done a lot of tracking and feel great about it, while your sheriff sucks, you should probably stop tracking and work on your sheriff flicks. Make a routine of skills you need to work on the most, and keep up with it. Change your routines once you feel more confident in the skills you've been refining. If you've done a lot of tracking and you feel great about it, while your sheriff sucks, you should probably stop tracking and work on your sheriff flicks. Let's do one last in-game example. You're peeking mid from A tiles on Haven. You're posted on the angle, and you feel ready to take on anyone in your path. Until this happens. So, how would I go about analyzing my mistakes? Firstly, I thought I had a complete advantage holding this angle, but still died. This indicates it probably wasn't an unlucky death, but rather a mistake was made. This is a common mistake low elo players make. In this scenario, yes. It's always better to hold an angle further away from the corner you're using as cover. This is a common mistake low elo players make. So we've discovered one mistake I made during the duel. Would there be anything else? In this case, I would also argue that crosshair placement could have potentially saved me, despite being outpositioned. Now that I have died this way, I can imagine how a player on the opposite team might peek the same angle in a future game. I will never let the same mistake happen twice. Patience, a will to improve, and time is all that's needed to get better at Valorant. Using this process of thinking will allow you to mentally divide the game of Valorant into simple to understand mechanics and skills. Then you can improve those skills in an efficient manner. Do not compare yourself to others. Be yourself when you play. Otherwise, you won't understand the mistakes you make. Learn what works for you. Thank you all for your time today, and let us know if you've made improvements after watching this video. Leave your feedback in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe in the meantime. Thank you.
Remember though, if you're really looking to improve at Valorant, then you've got to check out SkillCapped.com. Over on the site, we have hundreds of hours of exclusive content designed to take your game to the next level. It's also all backed by our rank improvement guarantee, meaning if you don't improve while actively using our service, you'll get your money back, no questions asked. We do this because our service works, and if it doesn't work, you shouldn't pay. So, what are you waiting for? Get started on your climb at SkillCapped.com, link in the description below.